volcano over the last few thousand years, and that's all part of the reconfiguration of the volcano.
This reconfiguration seems to be a sign that a collapse is impending. What we see as a pattern on these island volcanoes is that there's a fundamental structural reconfiguration with a reduction in the number of rift zones before the collapses occur.
They claim the active rift zone is acting like a bulldozer, pushing the western side to the ocean.
It is very dramatic. All these years we've been modeling this on my computer. Wonderful to see it in real life.
Yeah, there it is.
Very cool, very cool.
Evidence in the field points to a threat. In a future eruption, Cumbre Vieja could fail catastrophically, sending the western flank plunging into the sea. But what of the monster wave this is supposed to create? How can experts predict the behavior of a kilometer-high tsunami no one has ever seen?
Sitting at 145 wave analysis or whatever exhaust time for the pneumatic cylinders.
Oregon State University boasts a world-class tsunami simulator. It gives experts an insight into the unseen.
As tsunami scientists, we are likely never to actually see a tsunami wave, no matter how many times we go into the field.
The range and destructive force of a tsunami depends on how it's triggered.
Slow. Yeah, we're missing part on the MTA. I think we got pretty good coverage to the side, which we didn't get the last time, but we have a problem on that upper end. Somewhere over here, right?
Earthquake-generated events, like Sumatra in 2004, typically produce a series of separate waves spanning great distances. These long wavelength events can travel thousands of kilometers and still conserve their destructive energy. But a volcanic landslip, like the one predicted to occur off La Palma, will produce short wavelengths. It's thought that these waves will spread out and lose their destructive power as they cross the Atlantic. The Doomsday scenario was simulated in Oregon's tsunami machine.
Okay, all clear. Ready for launch.
The experiment was repeated several times. The effects recorded by a battery of sensors and measuring equipment.
What we're finding here is that we get a gigantic wave, a wave bigger than any wave we've ever seen in recorded history at the source in La Palmas. We have the entire western flank collapse catastrophically, attaining very high velocities at once. We get a very big wave locally.
The results seem to support the Doomsday scenario of a kilometer-high wave. But the experiment also revealed that the big wave would break down into a series of smaller waves that would lose power the further they traveled.
You'll have a series of waves approaching the U.S. East Coast, but they're most likely going to be significantly smaller compared to the original wave height at La Palma. The wave heights are most likely going to be on the order of a few feet, not necessarily catastrophic.
But the outlook is grim for local islands that would be engulfed by the initial wave. The experts convinced that Cumbre Vieja will collapse have also conducted simulated wave experiments by computer. Their results are different. The mega tsunami will devastate local islands and America's eastern seaboard on the other side of the Atlantic.
Right there.
20, 30, 40 meters as it comes inshore, same as the Caribbean.
That's the shoaling effect.
And now here it is coming into the East Coast.
Absolutely. I do physical simulations. That means using the laws of physics to the best I know them, which means gravity and friction and wind resistance. And you put that into a computer and let it go. It's always impressive to see how much of the coast gets. I mean, Sumatra got. We've had many criticisms on our work over the years. If the volume is what we say, and if the speeds I think are going to be what we say, I'll stick with my guns here.
Yeah, this is the one that we use to match the...
They claim their computer model is right, because its predictions have matched the effects of real disasters in the past. Like the Ritter Island volcanic eruption in 1888. Around 1.5 cubic kilometers of rock fell into the sea. The collapse spawned a series of 50-meter-high waves that swamped shores hundreds of kilometers away. The Day and Ward computer model matches eyewitness accounts. It appears tsunamis with short wavelengths can conserve destructive energy over vast distances, after all.
So we take that landslide model and put it in.
They used their model to simulate another more recent tsunami. A landslide-triggered wave in Alaska in 1958. The wave, more than half a kilometer high, slammed into the opposite side of the inlet at almost 100 kilometers an hour. Again, the results seen in the computer model matched the real speeds and wave heights recorded in 1958.
So the model really works, it really gets it right. And that gives us confidence that the model is successfully predicting what a collapse of La Palma might produce in terms of a giant tsunami.
The Doomsday scenario raises a profound question. What, if anything, can we do in the face of a La Palma-like catastrophe? Planning for natural disasters is the responsibility of local authorities in America.
(155 West 68th Street).
In New York, the first line of defense is the Office of Emergency Management.
Watch Command is our 24-hour warning point. They are monitoring electronic communication in the city and outside the city and around the world all day, every day. We get paid to think about the worst-case scenario and to plan for it. Disasters are our business.
Terrorist attacks, riots, and natural disasters like earthquakes, storms, and tornadoes are all on the so-called responders' radars. They supposedly monitor any kind of global misfortune around the clock. Seaborne threats are an obvious concern for the city's disaster sentinels.
New York City is 8.4 million people living in 300 square miles. We are 3 islands and a peninsula about 50 feet above the water. So we are vulnerable. This tsunami scenario is a catastrophic threat to New York City. And it is a low probability but high consequence event. Therefore, we are thinking about it and we are planning for it. We own the problem.
If eruptions and earthquakes did start to hit La Palma, like they did in 1949, officials half a world away in New York would face an almost impossible conundrum: if and when to issue an emergency evacuation alert. People living in low-lying areas like Brooklyn, Queens, and Lower Manhattan would be the most vulnerable to killer waves. Getting all residents to safety could take up to 18 hours. If officials waited until the tsunami was triggered, the evacuation call could come too late. The wave could rocket across the Atlantic in just 9 hours. But a false alarm would cause billions of dollars worth of disruption to businesses and lives.
Hours. This is OEM based, about to commence with the health and medical roll call. Montefiore Medical Center, Moses Division. Bronx Lebanon Hospital Center, Concourse Pavilion. Calvary Hospital.
An evacuation order is one of the toughest orders that a mayor can give, because, especially in New York City, it affects hundreds of thousands and even millions of people. Jobs can get very big very fast. In a disaster, that's when confusion sets in. Our job is communication coordination.
Plans are in place to run the stock exchange by remote, to lock down ports and businesses. Evacuation zones have also been arranged, giving priority to people in low-lying areas. Assembly areas have been pinpointed throughout Greater New York, where people would be directed to shelters. Public transport would be the main method of moving people en masse. Emergency services are also primed to help evacuate hospitals and nursing homes. Police ready to enforce evacuation orders. It's a thorough plan, but would it ever work in a real mega tsunami emergency? Today, La Palma is quiet. As long as the volcano sleeps, the ground is still. But the evidence suggests that it will reawake once again and split along a fissure. The experts convinced that Cumbre Vieja will erupt, fragment, and collapse are calling for greater monitoring of the active vents that line the far spine of this volcanic outcrop in the Atlantic. They say there's no need for panic, but also no room for complacency.
The key question, of course, is when is this collapse going to happen? When is this giant tsunami that we're predicting going to strike all around the North Atlantic? And we just don't know the answer to that. There's going to be a real need to closely monitor the volcano during its future eruptions.
La Palma is just one of the volcanic islands of the world. So La Palma is high on the list, but it's not alone on the list.
Brand new Doomsday Earth is back with Mega Quake at the same time next week, right here on National Geographic Channel. Stay tuned for Air Crash Investigation.